Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. I wasn't here last week, but I'm happy to be here now, and we're previewing a race. Things in the world are looking up.
Yes, they are. But I was waiting for the handover to me then, but
That
just
was it. Just take
believe
that.
in me.
Things are looking up. Pause. Go, Rob.
It's good to have you back, my friend. It
Thanks,
was
buddy.
missed you last week, but we all know why. So let's not dwell on that, shall we? And like you say, we've got a race to preview. We've got COTA, so we'll have cars on track again next week. Little bit of news and social. To be honest, it was a bit scraping the barrel this week. They seem to have all decided not to do much this week, but the one big debate that just will not shut up and go away is the whole Oscar versus Lando stuff and whether Lando should have gone in on Oscar at the beginning of Singapore or not, and blah, 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 blah. So we decided to have a quick look at team orders down the years and why we think that McLaren are kind of almost the opposite end of all team orders we've ever seen before, and why
Yep.
it was a problem, but maybe now won't be. Let's dive in at the beginning. Now, everyone knows that Brian loves a silly season, and this year really didn't give us
None.
anything. Not much
Bupkis.
happened.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yep. Now, I just happened across an article where they were saying, look, ahead of 2027, there are a whole bunch of drivers out of contract and ones that might not be, but might be up for a move because come the end of or even mid-season next year, all the drivers are going to basically have an understanding of which seat is the hot ticket in town based on how they have or haven't nailed the 2026 regulations. And I found these, I don't know if you saw the Brian, it was Piastri's got eyes on Ferrari, Ferrari have eyes on Bortoletto, Mercedes are still stalking Max, Charles is apparently getting fed up at Ferrari, and I saw another rumor that Oscar and Charles were going to swap seats, so we get Charles over to a McLaren.
I mean, it's a year ahead, right,
Yeah,
of when we
yes.
would normally see these. So I'm not putting too much stock in those, but I do love the idea that so many people have contracts for 26 through 26 because they wanted a seat to see what happened with the regs. And I agree with your point. Once we see who nailed it and who didn't, then like all of a sudden people will want different chairs. It'll be kind of the idea that says who's got a chair left and where are the good chairs to be, because they don't know that yet.
I know. I mean, can you imagine like something really, really bizarre? Like if you want to go into just random mode for a minute, that like Haas completely nails it out of the gate, and they do like a Braun GP style start to the season. Like, can you imagine like people like Max or Lando or anybody, George sniffing
Give me
around
in
to
the Haas.
Haas? Get me in a Haas.
That would be awesome. But yeah, I think you're totally right. And like that's the way to look at it is which cars, which teams will have nailed it so that their seat is valuable and where will people go. Now, I know we're kind of overdoing it, but again, this idea of the current cost cap regs, I hope, allows for someone like a Haas to kind of emerge. But I guess we'll have to wait till next year to find out.
Yeah, exactly. Now this one I wasn't even going to bother putting in until I saw the price tag because actually it wasn't as insane as I was expecting. So again,
I was
go
shocked by
on.
this when I read this.
Mm,
First of all, I didn't
Yeah,
know why you put it in. But then second of all, when I got down to the bottom, I thought there was a problem with your decimal point.
so did I. So I was trawling like I do to try and find something to talk about, and I saw a Lewis Hamilton package has been announced for Vegas. I was like, okay, yeah, next. But the little preview story kind of showed the price for it. So it's a 3-day ticket with assigned seats in the Lewis Hamilton grandstand, interactive fan stuff and exclusive merch, and the fans that purchase this package will be thrown into an automatic raffle to get a VIP upgrade for a 3-day Paddock Club rooftop tickets. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, how much is this going to cost then? It says the Lewis Hamilton Vegas package starts $1,115.23 for a 3-day ticket. So, excuse me? I mean, I know that's a lot of money, right? I know that's a lot of money. It is, don't get me wrong. But when we hear things like COTA at 2,600 and we thought Vegas was up in the same, are they having problems selling tickets this year? This just doesn't seem right. This has got to be a misprint on the website I found it on, but
It has to be. And like how many people do they think are going to apply? It's one of those things where what they're raffling, they're just going to spread over the number of people who purchase into the raffle, right? So it's you
yeah.
basically buy seats for $1,100, a seat for $1,100, and they have to, incur the cost of the raffled items in your portion of how many people went in on it. $1,100 is not that much money. I mean, what we paid for Canada Right now, our seats in Canada in American dollars,
I'm
um,
going to go Google a different. So this has got to be
seven
this
hundred
has
and
to be a
fifty
typo
dollars.
on the.
$750 a seat in Canada. Now we are on the start finish straight in the second row, but $750 is one of the cheapest 3-day tickets in F1. We did Canada for a reason because we both did not spend all of the money we've earned. And so we want to make sure we save some money. $1,100 ain't all that bad for Vegas when a couple years ago it was like $1,100 for standing room only on practice Thursday at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, this has got to be a typo. Somebody, I mean, although then again, I've gone to the Vegas website, and while I can't find the price for the 3-day package, the single day headline, single day from $185, which is what the rest of that I took from
And
I think
that's Thursday. So that's
motorsport.com.
single day
It's
Thursday.
Thursday, single day Thursday. But what I mean is that 185 quoted for Thursday is correct as per the Vegas one. We'll do a little bit more research on this one because I can't believe I thought that was going to be $11,000, not
I did too.
1,100, but.
And my daughter comes home from college right as that weekend gets going, so I don't think I'd be going, but it's good to know. Good to know. Listener Andy has sent in some excellent SAP stats, in this case, Andy stats. Andy, thank you for sending these in. The first one is for Rob. The first one is just for you. I mean, it's for you and all of the delusional Ferrari fans out there who are so sure your team is destined for greatness every year. I like to call it the Lucy effect.
I'm not sure I am.
Every time you run up and you expect the great season ahead of you, the Lucy pulls the football away, and it's Fred Vasseur there. In the last 17 seasons, Braun GP and Ferrari have led the Constructors' Championship for the same number of races. Braun GP obviously only competed in one of those 17 seasons.
It's a bit of a skewed stat, isn't it? Because we've had Red Bull and Mercedes domination in that era. 17 years, it's been, 9 of them with Mercedes? And I know.
Yes, Red Bull and Mercedes and Red Bull. But come on now. 17 years. You couldn't have had one good year in there? The second one is also fascinating. Not quite as, exciting, if you will, but just an interesting one. Kimi Antonelli, we've had an interesting season from him, right? At first, it was like, whoa, this guy is the real deal. And then we were like, what happened to Kimi Antonelli? And we saw his podium in Canada, and then he kind of disappeared. And he's been back a little bit. The reason is he apparently doesn't like racing in Europe, which was that middle section of the calendar so far, if not the second half. In the 9 races in Europe, Kimi has 3 points. 3, which is not good. Wasn't Pierre have 20? So far this season. But in the 9 races outside Europe, Kimi has 85 points. 85 points with 3 to 85? And those are equal numbers of races. I don't understand. My brain can't comprehend how you can be so bad in a certain type of race. Is it the type of track? Is it because he's near home? Is he bringing too many people to the races? What is happening?
I don't know. You want to say it's coincidence, but
9?
It is a startling stat. After 9, a sample size of 9, it's
18, but 9 and 9?
Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, Andy, thanks for sending those in. The Kimi one is a head scratcher, but since we're stuck now in, outside Europe, maybe he's on fire because we got COTA, we got Mexico, we got Brazil, Vegas, Qatar,
I was going to say this,
Abu Dhabi.
We're either going to see that stat absolutely backed up or it will get ruined in the next couple of races.
Yeah.
So,
Totally true.
Right, this next one I totally agree with. I didn't announce King of the Pits and Pits last week, but I have actually entered them into our kind of ongoing one. I kind of put a token one on behalf of me and Brian last week. And for Pits, I put for the second vote this season, TV coverage. Because Brian nominated TV coverage a few weeks back. I put it in here. We saw nothing. So Carlos Sainz came out and said Formula One's TV coverage is going overboard a little by showing the drivers' girlfriends and other halves while missing action on track. Said during the race, we did not see basically any of Fernando Alonso chasing down Lewis Hamilton. We didn't see Sainz recovering from the back to 10th to get a point, which I know some of them were passed in the pits, but I think it was 4 or 5 overtakes that he actually did on track. We saw none of it. So we just kept seeing pensive thoughts in the pits of various wives and girlfriends just kind of looking at nothing. And it was like, what's going on? And then they just focusing on Lando not really chasing Max for lap after lap after lap. It wasn't like he was actually eating into the distance. Well, behind,
No,
the only action of that snooze fest that was actually going on was going on behind. So, yeah, it was a poor day at the office for the. Maybe they fell asleep because the race wasn't that exciting.
maybe so I did watch this. I didn't watch it live, but I did watch the Singapore Grand Prix, and I stayed awake for the whole thing. I was quite proud of myself, and then I watched the best reactions. Matty P1, and he went in on TV direction as well. I didn't even know some of these battles were happening in the back. Some of the overtakes were happening. I found on YouTube, this rando channel I follow occasionally had like 5 minutes of just onboards from the people doing the overtaking that we never saw. And I agree with you. It was horrible coverage. Thank you for making them the pits. I would have nominated them myself because as much as I didn't know was happening, I did know Lewis was dropping with a brake problem. And I'm watching his time on the last lap and the distance 45 seconds to Fernando. And I think, oh, he can bring that home. Now it's 40 seconds, 37 seconds, 35. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to become a thing. 34. We saw none of it. Zero of it. We had no idea. I felt like we were back in Monaco.
What has happened?
I didn't know what had happened, Crofty, and you didn't either. We had no clue. And then it was like 0.4, and they crossed the finish line in order. I'm like, well, that must have been close, according to the timetable.
Yeah, it was not a good day at the office for TV coverage there. So hopefully COTA can put it right. They usually have pretty good
But isn't it
TV
like,
direction at
am I
COTA.
doing this wrong? Doesn't F1 do all the direction except at Monaco? And Monaco used to be abysmal. And then they picked up their game, and like they even added a helicopter, which they'd never had before over the Principality. And now
I think so.
Monaco's okay, but like now we're seeing just wags all the time during the race. Carlos is overtaking people, but we just see Rebecca Donaldson. And while she's pretty and all, could we see the race?
Yeah, I think it is all the same, but I guess it's different. I don't know if they send the same crew around. I mean,
I
it
don't
might be
know.
F1 that are doing the direction, but it might be local teams that are bought into. I don't
This
know.
may be a good off-season topic. We're always looking for stuff. F1
Who does the
direction,
TV direction?
common or not?
Okay, we know Valtteri is coming back next year on the grid, and we've had some great Finnish drivers down the years before him. Looking at you, Mika Hakkinen and Kimi, and just Finland's good base for motorsport.
Yeah,
Anyway, two-time World Rally champion. I'm going to say Kalle Rovanperä.
yeah, that's pretty good.
Probably butchered that. He's announced his retirement at the age of just 25 years from rally and is moving across to join Japan's Super Formula single-seater series with an eye on F1. So keep your eyes on that. Maybe we're going to have another Finnish driver coming across and ripping things up. Talking of ripping things up, seems like the C6 tyre design is being ripped up by Pirelli. They've admitted that the C6 had some shortcomings this year. And I didn't realize this. It was originally slated to be used at Singapore and Vegas, but obviously they didn't run it at Singapore, and they're not going to run it at Vegas. We will not see the C6 again this year. They had the head of Pirelli Motorsport, Mario Isola, was reacting to criticism that the C6 wasn't worth it. And he was defending it, saying, no, it is quicker. It is definitely quicker than the C5. It just has the downside of being unpredictable and harder to extract that extra performance. So it's like, And then he went on to say, and we're fully aware that the C5 and the C6 are really close in performance at the moment. And with the C5 being more dependable, we can see why teams didn't gamble on the C6 to try and get that extra like tenth or whatever out of it because you're not even sure you're going to unlock it. So they're going to try and make a bigger delta, apparently. They're not abandoning the C6 idea altogether, but they're going to take a look at it and say, really, the steps between each tires should be equal, and the C6 at the moment is like a C5.5, and it's just not worth it. So there you go, Brian. I know you hated the C6. It will
I
not be
hated
coming
it.
back this
It
year.
never worked. They never found that window, and for them to actually say it is faster, it may be for like half of a lap, but no one could ever put the whole lap together because it was dead on the second half of the lap, or it just didn't work. I mean, that's like saying I'm better looking than Glenn Powell. The guy from Top Gun Maverick. I mean, I am if you just take a picture of maybe my elbow and his elbow and, you get the lighting right. But give me a break, Pirelli. That did not work. We all saw it. We all know it didn't work. And that's okay. I do appreciate the try. What you got to do is make your tires as a whole less stout. We can't have people running whole races on a tire and then, just boxing for the perfunctory pit stop to change to the other one. We need real degradation to occur on your tires. Please, but don't let them
Yeah,
explode. So find that
I
line.
was going to say, so there must be a difference between a tire that like delaminates and we have blowouts. We don't need that, but they go on about kind of like Pirelli trying to make sure that tires are predictable and they won't grain or blister and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, why not let them grain a bit
Yeah,
quicker? Like let them run at optimum for a while and just have a sort of built-in sort of like I don't know. Obviously, being the tire expert that I am, but I'm kind of thinking like as the tire wears down, maybe there's another layer of rubber a little bit lower down that as soon as that gets exposed, it's not dangerous enough that you're going to get a blowout, but that layer when you get down to it, it ain't going to be as good.
it's street rubber. It's like the Pirellis on my car at this point, and now you're in real real trouble. You're really slowing down, and you got a box. And anyway, no video vault this week. Sorry, I'm still kind of fighting my way back to normalcy. Didn't get a chance to do any videos, but it is time to talk team orders. And Rob had this idea, and I love this idea because I gotta say the McLaren thing. While I still say I don't think they've done anything wrong, and I'm not as worked up about it. I am confused about what they're trying to do because what we'll talk about here now is that often teams have a number one and they'll prioritize that number one driver and make sure they get what they're supposed to get. They get a little advantage, they get a little tow, they get a little, free pass. And then at times they'll give the number two a treat if they can, because the number two did things for the number one. But McLaren has had this idea of being fair. And I've been okay with it. I'll be completely honest. If you've listened, you've heard me say, at Monza, when they boxed out of order and then Lando went second and had the slow pit stop, I actually think that was the right thing to do because the team screwed up Lando's race. And you can say that wouldn't have, doesn't matter. It's not the team's fault the jack didn't work. That's right. But if you ever want Lando to do that again, he will never do it if you're going to let him get screwed on a team order. So I was in, I think, the minority who thought it was all right at the time. And I think you were with me, where we were like,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
team called for it, and the team was doing these things for the championship. They were protecting the second of their two drivers in the race from being overtaken. They wanted a full haul of points. Now that they've won the constructors, I'm optimistic they're completely done with that. We'll find out. We'll talk more about it. But I did see something online that I loved. And I don't know if this is universal, but at least here in the States, we have a name for a woman who more often than not has a certain hairstyle. She believes she's very important and she wants to weigh in on the things that you are doing on your own. And she wants to tell you what you're doing wrong. And it's called a Karen. And so I saw someone who took the L in McLaren and made it a K and called it McCarran. And that kind of made me say, you know what? That's kind of what they've become. They're kind of just dangling around trying to control other people's stuff. And again, for the team and the Constructors' Championship and the way they were trying to make this a let them race, but let's make sure that we control the maximum points for the team. And therefore, when we control it, we want it to be fair. They were kind of McCarraning it. And so anyway, we'll talk more about team orders, but I love this idea because you're right. It is a little different.
It is. I was looking at this and thinking, why are we in this situation where it's such a hot debate? Is it just because it's the biggest team orders thing we've had in the social media era? And me growing up when team orders was a thing, it never really, maybe people were debating it in their relevant pubs or bars or wherever, but it wasn't making it into the media because no one cared. I don't know. But I looked at it and I was like, no, actually, down the years, and we'll start looking at a few of the famous ones, there's always been a team has been made up pretty much of a number one and a number two. And the team has put, Pit Lane Paul has come on and told us before, the teams prioritize the constructors title. That's what they see as the prize. The factory, if they can bring the constructors title home, they did a good job of putting two cars out on track that could get enough points to beat everybody else. And the driver's thing is it's a bonus if for the driver who wins it, but they actually don't care. He told us a story where I think it was after Abu Dhabi 21. Paul went out partying with the Mercedes team because they'd won the constructors and they
Right.
bumped into some Red Bull people celebrating and they almost, it's that Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other saying, but we won. It's like, what the Red Bull guys were, why are you out celebrating? And Paul was like, well, the Mercedes was, well, we won. And Red Bull were like, no, we did. And he said, that's the only time, he said, Red Bull are one of the only teams he's ever come across where they do actually seem to prize the drivers more than the constructors. And you can see that. They've really put all their eggs into the max basket and they almost don't care with what happens to the second driver. So anyway, McLaren, I agree with you. They came into this season, maybe last to some degree, with no obvious number 1-2 setup.
Right.
They came right into the season saying we have no two number one drivers, and isn't that brilliant? Because if we've got two number one drivers, our chance of doing back-to-back constructors is optimum. So what they've done, and this is pure speculation on my part, is they've sat down at the beginning of the season and said there is no number 1-2 here. You two are free to race, but under the banner of team comes first, and whatever we tell you in terms of orders is to maximize our chances of winning the constructors. And once we've done that, then you guys can duke it out. Because if you think of it through that lens, everything we've seen to date makes sense.
Right.
You've got a whole bunch of Oscar fans saying that Lando gets preferential treatment. And they'll bring out and they'll cite evidence. Then you've got the flip side being true, where the other fan base says that they're not being prioritized with almost an equal number of pieces of evidence. But if both sides have got equal evidence, guess what? It's kind of fair. So McLaren have done this really weird thing where they're just trying so hard to be fair. Some of their calls are coming across to us as just a bit weird because I just do. I think they're just trying to be so by the book that they must have had some pre-existing agreement at the beginning of the season. This is how we're going to do it. I don't care if one of you is ahead of the other in the driver's title until the constructors is sorted. I don't know.
It does feel like McLaren. And so, like, I just, like, yeah, and I'm with you. I think you said it well. The one thing I would add is at some point they have to, if they're going to stop doing that and let them race, they have to be clear on that to the drivers. So, for example, turn 1 Singapore, or turn 3 or whatever it was, when Lando kind of bounced off Max's rear end and into Oscar and pushed Oscar towards the wall, and Oscar backed out and Lando got the spot. Oscar gets on the blower and he's like, yo, Lando's been pinballing off me here. Can I have my spot back? And the team had no intention of giving the spot back. So what they need to say before the next race, and I'm sure they have, is that, you know, they're going to tell them that maybe the entire version of
Pyrals
is off. I don't know. But they're going to say, go race, go fair, bring both cars home. You know, we're done swapping positions. We're done pitting the second driver first. You guys are on your own to race with your engineers. You set up your race. You race each other if you want. But they haven't had a ton of on-track racing against each other as well because of these orders. So it's not as though we've seen them do this a bunch. They've manufactured a lot. And that, I think, has also been bad for the team because we saw what happened in Canada right in front of us with our very eyes as Lando just ran up the back of Oscar and then into the wall where we took a picture of it ourselves right there. We were looking at it. We touched it. And so, like, you know, to me, I feel like they have to be clear. They have to say, all right, we're done. We won the Constructors' Championship. Y'all go race. Bring both cars home. Did we hear a story that Lewis and Nico had a thing where if they crashed into each other, they had to pay? Like there was a fine. That's what McLaren should do this season. If you guys crash into each other, you guys are getting a big debit out of your bank account. Otherwise, have a good time. That's, to me, what they should do at this point.
Agree, because like my view on it the last race was, I wonder if they'd sat down before the race and said, no stupid stuff with each other. Today's priority is seal the constructors, and then we're going to give you free reign for the rest of the season. Because that would be the only way that Oscar's outrage at the move. But Oscar is a big boy. He knows that was a good aggressive overtake from Lando. Yeah. But if they had that conversation at the beginning, right, nothing stupid, no running into each other, bring home the constructors, and then we'll take it forward from COTA. If it had been under that banner, then I could see why Oscar would be, whoa, hang on a minute. We had this whole conversation about not doing this. But anyway, what will be interesting is COTA. Because now they've got the shiny trophy in the cabinet, the back-to-back constructors. There is, like you said, absolutely no need for anything now. It's, well, you're not going to go and tell them to crash into each other, but there will be no team orders, guys.
There should be
You
none.
two have at it. If we see any papaya rules in COTA, I'm going to be very disappointed because there's absolutely no reason for it now.
Agreed.
Just let them go.
I mean, if they do any of that, I will be... Quite frankly, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt for the Constructors' Championship, which is locked up. So there's no reason to McLaren it at COTA. And they should be fast. Like, this track should fit the McLaren setup. So they should be battling at the sharp end of the race here for a while. So I'm looking forward to it. So, Rob, let's talk about some of the famous team orders over the years that kind of reinforce the 1-2 version versus the Kumbaya, everyone gets a participation trophy at the front version.
I almost could not find an example of what McLaren are doing now. When you go back and look, and by the way, I was shocked at the first one because I didn't think team orders was as old as it was. And the first one on the list that we found, it was a great little table on Reddit. 1955 British Grand Prix. Fangio asked to let Sterling Moss win his home race. Fangio had already dominated the season, was miles ahead of Moss in second. So the team just asked him to swap it around so that he could take his home win. It's like, wow. I mean, I don't know quite how they did that. There's no team radios. It must have been the big boards. Let him pass.
What team was it who was using the boards when we were in Canada? It was only one team. It was Mercedes.
It was George. It was for
Yeah.
George, wasn't it, mainly?
They kept the lap count going for George. He was the only one during the race and during quali who kept doing it. Yeah, I found that fascinating too. And then you and I chatted briefly. And while it's not a team order, the idea of a number one and a number two did exist even in the 50s, because I remember all the stories and everything we read where there'd be two or three team members on a team. And I can't remember if it was like Maserati or Alfa Romeo, but they would have three cars in the race, and if the number one driver's car had a malfunction, they'd have the number three driver pull over, get out, and give the car to the number one driver. That is a team order. Like having to leave the race, that's a real team order. It's like, yeah, we're gonna need you to box and go have some Cheerios because your race is over, buddy. We're giving the car to the good driver. I mean, that is team orders. Now, again, that's a little different version than what we're talking about, but yeah, you're right. This did exist, and as we were talking about it, like I remember those stories. So started early, and it's been going forever. People can say no, though. So at the 81 Brazilian Grand Prix, Carlos Reutemann was asked to let Alan Jones pass, and he said, no, thank you. So he tried his best, and it was interesting because Reutemann missed the Drivers' Championship by 1 point, even though he did ignore the team order. So it was a fascinating kind of idea about the swap, but we started seeing the no's, and we're going to hear more over the years of teammates not liking this, and it becomes obvious. I mean, these are, a race car driver of this quality. You don't get there by being nice all the time. You got to get your elbows out. And I love when people are like, yeah, go stuff it.
Yeah, and everyone kind of goes back to, we'll come to it in a minute, kind of Schumacher going past Barrichello, despite the fact he was already going to win the championship. That was 2002. So I said I'm going to talk about it later. I'll talk about it now. Barrichello was asked to let Schumacher go past him, which was just devastating because Barrichello had done brilliantly in that race, and there was no real need for it because Schumacher was miles ahead. It wouldn't have mattered if Barrichello had won it, and everyone kind of sees that and sort of cites that one as the first big pointless overtake. But actually, go back 10 years earlier to that. Patrese was to let Mansell go past, which again made no impact at the point. Mansell had 108 points to Patrase's 56. The team order didn't even make a dent in the driver's title. Those two would finish first and second in the drivers' championship. Patrese was leading, no need to do it, and he was asked to swap round. We have personal insight into another little one that I like on here, the 97 one, which is actually weird team orders. This is weird. This is team orders to let other teams go past you. Do not fight them. And you like this one, Brian. I like because you like the story that goes with it, right?
I do very much, yeah. So a friend of the show, I'd be remiss if I didn't play the audio.
This is Jacques Villeneuve, and you're listening to The Dirty Side of the Track.
Tells a great story on this here Dirty Side podcast about that infamous 97 race where he won the World Drivers' Championship. And Schumacher had already bumped into Jack, and they'd had collision, and Schumacher had to retire, so Jack had effectively the Drivers' Championship secured if he could bring the car home. And the team gets on the horn and says, why don't you let the McLarens pass? He drove for Williams. So they said, why don't you let the McLarens pass? And he did, because what it ended up turning out, and the team didn't even know this at the time, but the car had been damaged in the collision, and they were worried that if Jack's out there, wrestling with people, something else could happen. And he tells a great story. Go check it out. You can find it on our website, www.dirtysideofthetrack.com, under special episodes if you want direct links. He talks about that there was actually damage to his car, and I'll spoil it a tiny bit, but the battery was hanging on by a thread, and had that come loose, he was done. And so I love that kind of story. And they're like, yeah, why don't you let everybody just pass you because you've got this sealed and we don't want to risk it. I thought that was great.
Yeah. And then this is where I'll go back to 2002. After this, the FIA came in and went, right, team orders, that's not happening. That is insane. They banned it. They banned it so you could not do team orders. and from 2002 to 2011, it was banned. The reason it kind of came back in 2011 is I think the FIA and everybody in the world just caught on that teams were still going to find a way. And the one that I think really tipped it was that in the 2010 German Grand Prix, Massa was ahead of Alonso. And they came over the radio and went, Alonso is faster than you. Can you confirm you understand that message? In other words, move over, buddy. Alonso's coming through. So everyone was finding ways of getting around team orders. So in the end, they just went, look, we can't police this. It's a pointless rule. Let's just get rid of it. And then it came back with a vengeance in 2013, which is, I think, now we're getting into some of the, I know it's recency bias, but this is the famous, when anybody talks about team orders, somebody will say multi-21.
Always. Always. And it is, I think it is a little bit of recency bias. I also think it's a little bit of the fact that it's on TV. And not just that we have the team radio, but that it unfolds in the cool-down room and that we see the Red Bull drivers talking about it. So we have Mark Webber and we have Sebastian Vettel. And Vettel is the World Drivers' Championship a couple years running at this point. And so he's, number one. And Webber's number two. And I think literally his car number was 2, but don't quote me on that. And they were in the race, and they're racing each other. And it's Webber's in front, Vettel behind. And so they're currently running 2-1. And Vettel starts getting a little frisky and wants to take this race. But it's like they're almost done. They're in the dying laps. And they get on the radio and they say multi-21, multi-map 21 or multi-21. You hear both as they repeat it, which means 2-1. Webber, Vettel, 2-1. That's the order that you're supposed to finish. And Vettel just starts attacking even harder at this point. Multi-21 Seb, and Seb's like, yeah, I'll show you multi-21. And he goes in, he blames Kvyat for being a torpedo.
I came like a torpedo.
Well, he came in like a torpedo, and he almost took Webber out. Webber wasn't defending because he got multi-map 21. He's like, oh, you want me to just bring it home? I'll bring it. What is that? And then his teammate goes whizzing past. And the cool-down room audio is great. As he looks at him, he goes, multi-21 Seb. Multi-21, like, what do you not understand? And so to me, I agree with you. There's some recency bias, but I also think there's good video, up-close video of the team dealing with it that also makes it amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Then we started seeing how team orders could start getting used, but we started to see maybe this is kind of the first inklings of the McLaren, but we'll do you a deal, which is 2017. Bottas is asked to let Hamilton through. He wanted him to swap positions so that Hamilton can chase Raikkonen down, but basically he couldn't catch him. Lewis couldn't catch him. So Mercedes asked Lewis to slow down and swap back. And it was the first kind of real swap back. There's probably been more than that. But the first one I really remember.
First one I remember,
normally
too.
It was first and second team, you're number one, you're number two, you let number one through and see how far they can go. And if they don't ultimately achieve what they were trying to do, well, tough luck. But this was the first time where they kind of went, Lewis, Valtteri moved out the way for you. You haven't chased down Raikkonen. You ain't going to catch him. Let's swap
Did
back
they
again.
give Lewis that order, or did Lewis do it on his own?
I don't know.
I can't remember Lewis being told to do that. I remember him doing it, but I can't remember if he was told. Maybe a listener knows for sure.
We don't even know if it could have been a pre-race agreement of like laws of engagement. But it was the first time we'd really seen a team order get given one way, and then kind of whether it was voluntarily or whether it was told, kind of like swap that thing back again. But then we go on a run of a number of them, and I think we'll culminate in the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix because you've got the audio for it, which is just we had a number of instances when Sergio Perez was just told time after time, move over for Max.
Don't attack Max, let Max through, give Max some space. Do you have Max's coffee ready as he drives by? Hand it to Max.
So there'd been just multiple occasions of this where they probably didn't even need to say anymore. It's like, yeah, Sergio, if you see a Red Bull in your rearview mirrors, just get out of the way. We don't care if you're going for the win. We don't care what's going on. Just move out of the way and let Max through. And then it was Brazil 2022.
Oh boy.
They swapped the position to give Max a chance to overtake Alonso, but he couldn't. So they asked him to give the spot back, didn't they? Have you got the audio?
And they did. And then he wouldn't. And so here's Checo.
Yeah, it shows who he really is.
I mean, Checo was battling for position in the Drivers' Championship, not for first. Max had pretty much gotten that, I believe, already. And so the question wasn't about that. It was, can you help Checo? He helped you. Now help him back out, and his points scoring efforts. I actually think it was even in there was a sprint that year, maybe, I can't remember. And Max wouldn't give. He's like, no, you may have given to me, but I never give to you anyone else. And so that was Checo's audio. He is who he thought he is. And that's Max. Max is not giving shit to anything to anybody. Oops, I forgot we don't swear. 1 week off, and I'm a mess.
They kind of, and we've missed a whole heap of them out there off this table that was on Reddit, but they're all the same pattern. They're all pretty much number one being given the preferential treatment of asking a driver to get out of the way. We tried to highlight a couple of the weird ones, like Villeneuve being asked to be let the McLarens overtake, but it was all that kind of pattern until you hit Hungary last year and Monza this year, where it's the whole McLaren fairness thing, and it's just weird. And I wonder if because us as fans, we've been groomed since 1950. Teams have number one drivers, number two drivers. Do you think the McLaren situation just hurts everyone's brains where they're kind of like, I can't work out who's going to get given? I don't know. It's just this weird hyper fairness thing that is just.
Yeah. My perspective on it, and by the way, we didn't play the Hungary.
Just remember every single Sunday morning meeting we have.
The problem with it, right, is this. Do you remember Monaco this year? Of course you do. And how much I hated the two-stop mandatory thing, because we saw teams, and Williams executed it brilliantly, and then Mercedes were penalized because of it, and others stuck behind them, purposely driving slowly. Like, not just a little slowly to save tires, but like actually backing off to the tune of 3 to 4 to 5 seconds a lap, because no one could pass. You bought your teammate space, and they boxed. I hated that because there was an incentive to not drive fast. When you're managing tires and you back off a little, I'm okay with that because you're trying to get the most out of the tire over the course of that stint. You may not give it full beans, and I'm with you, Rob. You've changed my mind. I would prefer to see full beans driving all the time. But if you have to do a little tire management, yes, that usually means we're going to have a lull in the race. But it's for the betterment of your own race. It'll be better over the life of that tire, over the stint, and I understand why. Monaco hurt me because you had people who purposely drove slowly. And that's not the reason we watch a race ever. Never, ever. It's not a race. It's not a race if someone's not racing as fast as they can. So when McLaren does this, they're manufacturing a result that isn't done and born of the racing on the track. It's born of someone on a radio headset from the pit lane wall. And that's why I think people hate it as much as they do, because they're not letting the two guys go out and race. And because they're trying to be McLaren, where it's all fair, they're asking someone to slow down and let someone else by for things that aren't really their problem. And it's often a slow pit stop. And so, to me, I think that's part of it. If you let them race, and if, let's say, Oscar's coming up on Lando and chasing Max for a win, and Oscar's on fresher tires and moving faster and having a better race, better pace, I could see them swapping, and I don't think anyone would really have a problem. Maybe not when they're battling for a driver's championship, but I'm saying in general, that's how team orders go. The person behind you is faster, or we're going to help the number one. When you swap them around because you're pulling puppet strings from the pit lane wall, I think that's where people have a problem with it. And I understand why they did it, but I hope they're done with it.
No, but going back to my point, every team orders ever has been the puppet strings from the pit lane, right? So the asking Sergio to get out of the way for Max, not Fangio, that one was the other way around, and Mansell, any of these kind of ones, and we've all been okay with it, I think, because we know that's the number one driver, he's going to get preferential treatment, so we kind of just let it slide. I think the difference of this puppet mastery is that it's like, you're not letting them go at each other so we really know who the number one driver is out of these two. You're like trying to be over the top fair to keep them equal. It's like they're sort of saying, right, boys, try and keep within touching distance of each other until we get the constructors, and then we can have an amazing end of the season. But up until then, we're going to try and keep everything nice and neutral. And that I'm with you. Like, don't artificially keep it neutral. So I'm going to be really, really annoyed if from now to the end of the race season we see more of this. If the gloves are off, it could be a absolutely epic end to the season.
And I hope we never hear this team radio from Lando.
Not racing for anything.
Not racing for anything. That was for a different team that was, in the back markers, and he was annoyed getting through. They're not racing for anything. Well, now you are, Lando, and you should be allowed to do it. You and Oscar should be out there. And you know where they should be? out there at COTA, which is coming up next. Now, Rob, you were in Austin last week.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember.
This week, Monday, Tuesday, I was in San Antonio. I was really hoping this meeting was going to be in about 2 weeks' time, because if I could have been in Austin, if I could have been in San Antonio for the Monday and the Tuesday, I may have tried to go there a little bit earlier and take the race weekend in as well. But alas, it didn't work out like that. How dare these CEOs of companies not align their meetings in line with the Formula One calendar?
I
That's what I
agree.
want to know.
I agree. Are people not thinking? Question. I mean, come on now.
Do you want to know okay, little sidebar? The most frustrating thing about this is after we'd finished the presentation and we were done and we were kind of saying our goodbyes to get ready to go off to the airport, the conversation, one of my colleagues, I think, who lives in Austin, brought the conversation around to F1. This guy again gets all excited about F1. I show him the picture of us in Valtteri's garage. He's like, "That's amazing. That's brilliant." I'm like, "Right, so you like this sport? We've got a race in 2 weeks. Why didn't you put 2 and 2 together?" But you could have invited us along. But anyway,
man.
COTA is the current host track of the US Grand Prix. So the US Grand Prix has been going like almost as long as F1. It's been going since 1959, but it's bounced around. I always say Sebring, and I always think I say it wrong.
You do. At least here in
Okay.
America, you do. Sebring.
If it was Sebring, wouldn't it be SEE? Like,
I mean,
mostly.
potentially,
Anyways.
but the way that everyone in America calls
Yeah.
it Sebring, and I've lived in Florida, it's Sebring.
I'm going to bow to the people that live there and probably know how to say it. But yeah, okay. Riverside in 1960, Watkins Glen 61 to 80, Phoenix 89 to 91, Indy. Ooh, remember the Indy race where like about 3 cars took to the grid?
Well, and speaking of team orders, do you remember the one when the Ferraris tried to go across tide? Anyway, yeah,
they messed that one up. So 2000 to 2007, and then Austin has been the home since 2012. I love this track. We'll have 56 laps of 3.426 mile circuit. The current drivers to win here are Hamilton, Max, and Charles. It pains me I had to drop. I think Valtteri might have a win here, but I couldn't list him as current, so. But I can next year when he's back.
That's right. I love COTA. Can I say this real quick? You said it.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, when the F1 world turns its eyes on America, I get a little embarrassed with Vegas. I like it. I still love Vegas, but it's like, a guilty pleasure kind of thing. Like, it's not the best we could do, but it'll work. And then Miami, I was talking to one of our board members this week, and they went to Miami and loved it. Miami's growing on me, but it's still a car park. And like, I love the idea of COTA. It is a purpose-built racetrack that almost everybody seems to like. The racing is usually pretty good. It represents us well, even if everyone shows up in cowboy hats thinking that's how all of Texas is, and it's not. Anyway, my point is, I love COTA. I love watching the race from there. I think the track is brilliant. I'm happy you like it too, as you said, because it feels like the way America should show F1 that we can do this.
It feels like with the deluge of street tracks that me and you hate, it just feels like this is a proper track. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got straights, it's got tight corners, it's got those little S's that I can never even nail on the PlayStation. I end up crashing out every single time because it's just so damn hard. But then that's great because it's a challenge for the drivers. You've really got to thread the needle through that section. It's just a quality racetrack. And then what they did for last year's race, all the fake gravel and artificial turf was added to try to. We'd seen a few track limits debacles at COTA down the years, and they kind of tried to change that, and they put some more CCTV in so we could actually see if people breached track limits. And I think it was much better for it. I'm not usually a fan of sprint races in the main, but actually last year's was a bit of a good one after we'd had a snooze fest the year before. Carlos Sainz, he was a man on a mission. In fact, Ferrari were on a mission last year. This tugs at my heartstrings because we will get to the race in a minute. But the sprint, it was Max, George, and Charles from Quali, and it came home Max, Carlos, Lando. Now, Carlos was on an absolute mission. He was down the order. He was stuck behind Charles for a while. He finally got Charles, and he came on the radio, and he said, "Let's go and get them guys." And it was like, I imagine him saying it with his visor up. And then once he finished saying it, flipped the visor down,
I love
put his
that.
foot to the floor. He went and battled with George. He got George, and he just absolutely was on a mission on Lando's tail, and finally got him on the last lap. I think it was. He got past Lando to get second place. It was just Carlos was just on a mission, and it was a really exciting sprint.
It was. I totally agree with you. I love your idea that he had the visor up and then he says it and then puts his foot to the floor. As we all know, they're going flat out the whole time. So it's not like he had an extra, now I'll use all of the gas pedal. But I agree with you. There's something about that, and I remember that. And for me, I also like the idea that Ferraris were fast and good. Let's talk about the race, quality and race.
Oh
and
my
then
God,
I'll bring out something here.
The race was just spectacular for me as a Ferrari fan. So it was Lando, Max, and Carlos for the front three. So there is no name Charles in there. We have Lando, Max, Carlos as the front three. Leclerc took the lead at the first corner after. I think we were sort of on about how it was Max and Lando battling and they went wide, and we said Charles came up the inside. His eyes must have just been as big as plates. Kind of
I'll
go,
take that, thank you.
I'll take that.
No worries. Thank you. Goodbye.
And Sainz followed through as well, and they went and they did the first Ferrari 1-2 since 2006.
Wow.
I was just spectacular watching the Ferrari boys come home for a second. I was just so nervous for about the last 10, 15 laps, expecting some, a puncture, engine to blow up, them to run into each other for no reason whatsoever.
I love that, and we'll talk about Charles in a second here from the audio from a couple years ago. But there was also some great continued Norris Verstappen battling, and if you remember, at this point last year, Lando had a pipe dream of trying to catch Max in the Drivers' Championship, and he needed a lot of good luck to go his way. And so they were battling pretty hard, and at the outside of turn 12, Lando passed Max off the track. But Max kind of pushed him off the track. And so Lando's like, I'm not giving it back. It was fine. I had nowhere to go. And he did get a penalty at the end, giving third to Max. But we had, and this is, again, I apologize. I've had a lot on my mind the last couple weeks. My brain isn't working. Was it Coach Mike? So there was a listener, a Dirty Sider, at turn 12, who sent us a camera, a cell phone video of this happening in front of them. And I watched that clip like 10 times. I'm like, whoa, you can, and I'm just dissecting, and it's a camera phone. I have the recording on my 10-foot TV in the basement I could go watch. Instead, I'm watching what I would have loved to have been at, the fan perspective, because that's what the Dirty Side's all about. So I loved that. And that battle. I love COTA. I love the fact that we Americanize it just enough to piss off everyone. So, like 3 or 4 years ago, Willie T. Ribbs, the racing driver, introduced and interviewed people. And this is how he interviewed Charles.
Charles Chuck Leclerc.
No one has ever called Charles Chuck in his life. He's never maybe been called Charlie, maybe a little bit of Chaz. No one's ever called him Chuck until he came to America. He looked so confused. Charles Chuck Leclerc, he's like, what? And so I loved that. This is injected in my veins. This is what I need. It's also on at the same time as the Packer game next week. So I will be in my basement with both things running at the same time, probably just drooling as I'm trying to watch both and my brain can't function.
It'll be interesting to see if we get a new winner here, because like I said, we've had, what did I say, the current, it's Hamilton, Max, and Charles. So Max could easily add to it. But if either of the McLaren boys win, that'll be their first win there. We've had 6 wins for Hamilton, 5, and this is for the USGP as a whole, not just COTA. So it's Hamilton with 6, Schumacher with 5, Hill, Clark, and Verstappen with 3, and then a whole gaggle of people on 2, which includes Ayrton Senna. Constructors, Ferrari by 11, by 2, they got 11 to, what does that say there? Is that Lotus? Jeepers.
Yeah.
I got an eye doctor exam today, so I shouldn't have made the thing so small.
It is Lotus. Lotus and
we got
McLaren
Lotus and
on
McLaren on 8. Mercedes on 6, although one of those is a non-championship. Red Bull on 4. Fiat with 3 non-championships. My first car was a Fiat. Little Fiat Panda. Great car. BRM on 3, and Peugeot and Tyrrell down on 2, and some of those are non-championships as well. So
my first car was a Tyrrell. It had 6 wheels. The McLaren's last win in the USGP 2012, I know we'll do our predictions on Wednesday. I think there's a real chance we see that being updated to 2025. I just don't know who.
Yeah, I think because me and you haven't discussed kind of the impact of Singapore on anything, but I think George Russell has gone and torpedoed Max's title dreams.
I agree.
I know it's a little bit far out yet, but we said that if Max really is back in the conversation, he'll probably need to win all the races and hope that almost both McLarens DNF, because he needs to climb over both of them. But what we kind of said before Singapore was, but we got a funny feeling that some other cars at some other points are going to come in and take those points that Max will really need. And George went and did that at Singapore by taking a big slice of points. And you can't bet against George, or maybe, hopefully, Ferrari doing that between now and the end of the season as well.
I told you about the Pope 2 weeks ago and Charles's wheel. Now, I wasn't live for Singapore, so I couldn't bring that special Chicago Pope Sap combination magic. Just wait. And I'm not even Christian, so I'm really rolling this whole Pope thing for a while here.
So, yeah, my gut feel tells me that it's really the McLaren boys that are fighting for this title. Now, if something stupid happens where they take each other out and Max wins a race, then okay, a big slice of 25 points out, and then maybe the same thing happens again, then we could easily be back on it again. But just looking at what we got, like 6 left?
6.
6 left. If you imagine everybody finishes, even if Max wins every race and one of the Papaya boys comes second, he's only ever eaten in 6 at a time, and it's just not going to be enough for him.
There's a few sprints, but it's going to be hard. I agree. This is last year. This is, in my mind, a carbon copy of Lando trying to make an effort on Max. Yeah, it's Max doing the same to both Papaya boys. And if we were racing one of them and the other was down, in the Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Checo Perez area, which means not relevant to the top, then it would be different. But you got 2 of them up there. So I agree with you. I think it's a McLaren battle to the end. And I am hoping, just for me, that we get a little bit of, like, Lando eats in a little bit to Oscar's lead and we make it where either one can kind of take it over the last few races. That's just the viewer in me. I'm not a McLaren guy. And quite honestly, when we talk about Ferrari, just one last thing. I love Charles. I've loved him for a long time. And I'm a Lewis guy, too. So when Lewis joined Ferrari, I talked to you about this. I've talked about it on the pod here. People have heard me say it. I anticipated becoming a Ferrari guy. Their car's been so bad, and Lewis has been not as good as I thought in the car this year, as he gets used to it. And Charles hasn't, he's had some podiums, but I haven't been indoctrinated into Ferrari yet. I'm still waiting. Like, come on, guys. I like both these drivers. Turn me into a Ferrari guy. And the wait continues.
Yeah, I mean, they've just been... You look at the pair of them. I mean, they're 5th and 6th in the title. They're not in the title conversation. Obviously, they're never going to get caught by anybody else behind them. They're locked in 5th and 6th. Lewis is 50-ish points behind Charles. He's probably not going to turn that around. So those two are basically locked in as 5th and 6th, which is disappointing at this stage of the season. They can overhaul Mercedes and at least finish second in the constructors, but they're going to need something special over the last 6 races that we haven't been seeing before. And to almost kind of finish the pod where we almost started, they just got to pray that Kimi Antonelli isn't any good outside of Europe for the...
Andy, the stats.
But
Rob, anything else for you this week?
No, just looking forward to it. Looking forward to this. I want to just see this go all the way down to the wire. I want Abu Dhabi it's still on the table between the 2 McLaren boys, and watch the most epic end to a season that we've seen since 2021, and hope that it's not as controversial.
Yeah, the Australian Michael Massey coming in to help Oscar.
You
went
there.
I did. I always do. It's not too soon anymore. I just want to say thanks. Thanks to you, Rob, for being a great friend over the last couple weeks. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who put in reviews last week, not knowing the reason why. Thanks to Pitlane Paul. Paul sent me a bunch of really nice WhatsApps when we traded notes, and his messages last week meant a ton. Thanks to all the Dirty Siders who reached out to me. I do appreciate it very much. And all of your notes, it's just so kind. So thank you to you all very much. I appreciate it. I love doing the pod. I'm happy I'm back. And I'm happy we will be back reviewing COTA in 1 week's time. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Be well. Be safe. Talk to you in a week's time.